So last time we were talking about terrorism in Kashmir, and I've been giving you some of my views about the reasons for terrorism being basically the question of poverty. If you look at this question, why is there poverty in Pakistan? Why doesn't the government do something to raise their economy and remove poverty like we are doing here? So, a very interesting point, because basically Pakistan believes that it can control other nations by terrorist influence. And unfortunately for them, the large number of Pakistanis who are acting as terrorists within Pakistan also, because Pakistan has raised this Frankenstein's monster and they try and control it from the ISI of the army. Yes, that happened. But a very brown number of branches of terrorists in Afghanistan and in Pakistan who work against the Pakistan state, besides working against the Indian state and against Afghanistan. So it's a very interesting question. For instance, in 1971, when we got 93,000 prisoners after assisting East Bengal, East Pakistan Bengalis to gain their freedom from the very nasty military yoke of Pakistan. There was the Simla Conference in 1972, which was held by Indira Gandhi with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who had become the president of Pakistan. And if you recollect, his daughter Benazir was about a 16-year-old girl, and she also attended the conference in Simla and lasted for 4 days. And I described this earlier to you. He literally kissed the feet of Indira Gandhi to say, please help me, because if you are harsh in your dealings with the Simla Peace Conference after this war and the question of return of 93,000 prisoners, then I may not be able to remain as the president of Pakistan, nor will I be able to bring that nation up. And Indira Gandhi, in her wisdom, permitted the division of Kashmir into a line of control instead of a ceasefire. And military organizations on Pakistan and India, commanded by a lieutenant general on both sides, were deputed to mark out the boundary on the maps in manner satisfactory to both sides, and that was done. So we have a line of control. Now, Bhutto had promised that this line of control would be treated like an international border, but would not be called a border. In other words, Indira Gandhi's desire at that time, as I can assess, was to settle the Kashmir issue between India and Pakistan forever by putting an international boundary between the two halves of Kashmir, one occupied by Pakistan and one occupied by India, and to create peace. But as we have seen, one cannot trust Pakistan, because even if they sign treaties diplomatically, they then break those treaties on their own time when they're powerful enough and stab you in the back. This is a culture amongst many Muslim nations. If you recollect, the great Rana Pratap, for instance, had defeated Muhammad Ghori a number of times. And every time he excused him when the man used to raid from Afghanistan. And eventually, one of those raids, having pardoned him 3 times, he was killed. And he was captured prisoner, Rana, and he was blinded and he was killed. In other words, no matter how many times you defeat Pakistan and they sign the treaty, they stab you in the back at the first opportunity. Therefore, what is the answer to this? The answer to this is that we do not trust anything that you deal with Pakistan, because they will stab you in the back. So therefore, we don't want to enter that country, but at the same time, we must defend our country resolutely and not give back to Pakistan territories that we have captured by military blood, sweat, and tears. For instance, the Hajipir Pass, the Kargil Heights, certain areas here were returned by Indira Gandhi after the 71 war, the Simla Conference, to sort of appease Pakistan. I don't think any appeasement is necessary for that nation. Second point of interest is that they have in Pakistan these madrasas. I've spoken to you about this earlier. where they train children on one square meal, paid for by Saudi Arabia and and Iran, perhaps. But what are these children? What are they taught? They have a square meal. Only the boys go there because their parents cannot feed the children. So at least they get a square meal. They learn the Quran by heart without understanding what they're learning, and they're only taught how to protect Islam in danger. Next question, Nivedita, that we have to consider, why do these people consider Islam to be in danger? Islam is a very fine religion. If you study the Quran, there's some very beautiful thoughts inside that, very similar to Vedanta, very similar to the Bible and the Christianity, very similar to Jainism. But yet it has this problem of Islam in danger, and we must kill everybody else unless they're converted to Islam. This is a fear of the religion. In fact, even the Christians, if you look at it, have a fear of the religion because they must convert everybody else to Christianity. Otherwise, they feel that Christianity is in danger. Why should it be like that? If you take Vedanta, it accepts all religions as different pathways to the great Lord or to nature, whatever you like to call it. If you study the Vedas and the Upanishads, nowhere is it said that there has to be a God whom you have to pray to. It says that you have to lead a life in a certain way, physically and mentally. That means control your mind and your body and become master of yourself. This is the teaching here. So that you become a superior human being. Now, many poets in Pakistan and in Christianity have said these very words in their poetry. But it's one thing to say these words, another thing for the population to follow. They don't. Hence, it's an untrustworthy terrorist nation, and that's my view. Coming back to Kashmir, I told you last time that at that time when the Chief Farooq Abdullah government was very clearly not interested in governance per se, more to be calm and cool about the terrorists, because if they allowed terrorism to function, especially 2 or 3 people who were in the Hurriyat conference, as it was known, they were more terrorist in tradition than anything else, and they were advising all the population how to carry on fighting against the Indian presence in Kashmir. And Farooq Abdullah and his ilk, followed by his son Umar Abdullah, and then later followed by Mufti Muhammad Saeed, who had been a home minister in India when I was the chief, and then he became chief minister of Kashmir with the People's Democratic Party, as he calls it. And then when he was retired and his daughter Mehbooba took over, the same philosophy. Be kind and calm to the terrorists because they are Kashmiris who are fighting for their food and all that. And with the result, get more and more money out of the government of India. I told you there was a lot of corruption in Kashmir because right from Jawaharlal Nehru's philosophy of the Indian government, of the Congress Party, if I might say, right up to Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi in my time, and for that matter, V.P. Singh, the question was to indulge in a lot of money being thrown at Kashmir. I asked some of the bureaucrats and the politicians, why are we sending billions of rupees to Kashmir, which we are not sending to other states which are backward in India, such as Bihar, and what is now Jharkhand, to other states which are backward, West Bengal, East Orissa, certain other places, Madhya Pradesh, if you like. Rajasthan wanted a lot of funds, and these are much larger states, more population. But no, they got their dole, which is much smaller than what Kashmir got under the rule of the Congress Party. And now this philosophy was, what was the aim behind? And I said, how is this money being used? When we went the army and we controlled Kashmir, we found that there was utter corruption. Everybody from chief minister downwards were making lakhs of rupees, down to deputy commissioners, to tahsildars, to zamindars, to village presidents, the pradhans of villages, building triple-storied houses and moving around in with great wealth. If you ask the Kashmiri driver and the normal person in the street, he was so angry, saying that the government of India is only ruling us by throwing huge amounts of money at these idiots who are not giving us good governance, but just pocketing the money. Of course, when we took over, we sorted out a large number of people right down up to Tehsildar and up to the village Pradhan for taking money and threatened them and tried to make them spend more of these funds to the uplift of their villages and people rather than put it in their pocket. Highly corrupted. So I don't think that policy was working well in Kashmir. Now let me talk a few words about the Article 370, which is much in the news these days also, which was put across by the present government 2 years ago. I think this is the most brilliant move by a government of India since our independence. We have to sort out the Kashmir problem, because I must say, Nivedita, to you, it is a very, very important state of India. I must say to you that not only on the map is it the head of the Indian subcontinent, it is the head of India. It is the head of India spiritually, and also in beauty, and also in the way people function in the various religions, whether it is Vedanta, whether it is Buddhism, whether it is Islam, whether it is Sufism, whatever it is, has plenty in Kashmir. They have shrines over there, they've got brilliant thinking, some of them are extremely spiritual, holy men there. Of course, they are Yatra to Amarnath, as you know. The whole of Amarnath cave, etc., is the ownership of Muslim families, amongst the poor Muslim families. They make a lot of money with these yatras. And yet the terrorists were saying we must stop this yatra and shooting people, etc. With the result, those Muslim poor families who really managed the Amarnath shrine didn't get any money for a number of years when terrorism was at its height. So this is a ridiculous policy by the government of India and the way they were handling Kashmir. And I must say, with this present government, things have changed radically. I was very happy to visit Kashmir. I've been there for 6 days now, 5 days really. And with my family, 4 generations of us, my daughter, granddaughter, and great-grandson, who is about 1.5 years old. We spent 5 days, and we spend the time in villages, talking to taxi drivers, talking to shikara drivers, and talking to shopkeepers. They are much happier now. Why? Because the present government, which is administered by a lieutenant governor appointed in Kashmir by the central government, with no idiotic politics involved, has uplifted the economy. Lakhs and lakhs of tourism coming there. The roads of Kashmir and the railways of Kashmir are very highly developed. Top-class roads from one end of the valley to the other. 4 lanes and railway line functioning, which is yet to be connected to Jammu. It will be done shortly. Feats of engineering unheard of earlier. Huge amount of development by private companies. Private companies have been permitted to buy land in Kashmir, provided they set up factories and produce cars, produce electricity, produce whatever, even consumer goods. With the result that in these factories, large number of Kashmiris are getting employed. Education in Kashmir is improving. And of course, I told you earlier that the army started it by the Sadh Bhavna aspect of bringing education to remote villages in forward areas and slowly spread to internal areas also, where the army opens schools, has teachers, and gives them an education which is not only the Quran, but geography, history, social sciences, etc. With the result that these people get degrees, their sports and hockey teams and the cricket teams are encouraged. The music is encouraged, which the terrorists have stopped them from playing music. There's a girls' band in Kashmir who were being chased by the terrorists, at least they're playing music again. So they're developing. They're studying history, not only of Kashmir, but of India and of the whole world. Their students are now getting into the police units, in the police, Kashmir police, into armed police like CRPF and BSF, and many of them are now entering the Indian Army. And then some of them are posted all over India, and so their mind expands because they go to any part of it. So this Article 370, which prevented even any central government rule, had to be passed by the Kashmir Parliament, otherwise it would not accept. That's all been removed. Of course, these politicians like Farooq and Mehbooba Mufti and others and his family, Omar Abdullah, are gnashing their teeth in anger, but that's not going to get them anywhere. Elections are going to be held. New constituencies have been worked out. I must tell you something more, that the areas which are occupied by Pakistan across the so-called ceasefire line, in especially the northern areas of Kashmir, that is beyond Ladakh to the west and beyond the valley to the west. There are two aspects of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. One is the northern areas, which are mostly Shia tribes, Muslim Shia tribes of Aryan extraction. And the other in the southern areas, like opposite Rajouri and Poonch, which is near Islamabad, those are Punjabi Muslims. As the northern areas are not happy with their present governors from Pakistan, because they've got a Sunni ruler who is very harsh with the Shia population. Many requests keep coming on the intelligence channel for India to intervene and assist them to get away from the depredations of their Sunni ruler. Well, nonetheless, with the demarcation of constituencies for the MLAs that have to be elected to the Kashmir government when the elections come in the next few weeks or months, many of these constituencies spread across to the occupied Kashmir area, and we wait and see what happens. Some of them may even be allowed to vote for the next government of Kashmir. We wait and see how this develops. But you will see that with the high development in the Kashmir Valley and in Ladakh and in Jammu, there's a lot of jealousy and envy on the other side because they are not getting that sort of. We have electricity in the remotest areas, we have schools in the remotest areas, we've got roads constructed, tourists coming in massive numbers. Everybody seems to be very happy. I was very happy to visit Kashmir for these 5 days and to see the development that has taken place in the last few years. And, there were no tourists coming there. And if the tourists don't come there, nobody makes any money because it is an area of tourism. Now there's so many lakhs of tourism that everybody is laughing, grinning from year to year. Very happy. After all human beings, no matter what religious persuasion, want to live a good life. They want their children to be educated. They want peace and quiet. And they want to make money in their business, whatever they're doing. So at least they've got to get that opportunity, which I'm very happy to say they do have. Now, about Western countries, whether it's Britain, erstwhile Britain, who still thinks it's a world colonial power or something, which there is nowhere near that. And people in the United States, they don't like anything developed well because probably the Western world feels threatened. As it is India is rising, so is China rising. This is a feeling of threat that exists in the Western mind because they have, from colonial point of view, ruled much of this world. I'm afraid their power is diminishing very rapidly. And America thought that with its nuclear power, etc., and the United Nations, with the Security Council, certain countries being permitted to have the veto who are nuclear powers of World War II, who are the winners of World War II. But all of us say that, just because you beat Germany and Japan and Italy in World War II doesn't mean you're going to rule the world for the rest of history. All of us are equal to the business of ruling this world. At least we rule ourselves and we will not accept any interference. I must give it to you that both India, China, and Russia feel the same way. So does Saudi Arabia. You notice now that the control of the Americans over all trade in the world because of the dollar aspect. International trade could not be done. After World War II, they had the Bretton Woods Conference, etc., economic conference where the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank was created. The idea here was that all international trade will be based on a single currency, that is the dollar. A few years ago, when India was drawing oil from Iran, we were told then, I think it was the Trump administration or maybe earlier, that Iran is a very nasty nation. You remember George Bush, the junior, George W. Bush, said there are 3 evil nations in the world. One of them is North Korea, the other is Iran, and the next is Iraq. The 3 evil nations of the world. Who the hell is he to call a nation evil? I have visited those nations before these sanctions were placed on them. They're very high-class nations, run very well indeed, Of course, the Americans could stomach the fact that they're run by dictators, and therefore they had to intervene to kill Saddam Hussein or to control chaos. And from a very well-developed nation, they drove it back to the Stone Age by bombing out its cities and killing its leaders. And now they themselves can't rule it. They've run away from there. As I told you earlier, their style is to create chaos and run away. They are at fault for that. And according to the Indian philosophy, karmo ka phal, one of these days they'll have to pay for it. So I don't think they can rule the world forever. Each country has a right to rule itself and have an equal voice in the United Nations. So we wait and see where that goes. But you will notice that some nations are becoming very powerful and no longer accepting what the West demands. India is one of them. So is China. So is Russia. And Saudi Arabia is coming into that. So is Brazil. Now, the dollar trade is going down because since the sanctions on America took place because of this Ukraine war, everybody wants Russian oil because it's cheaper. The West says you can't trade with the Russian oil because we've put sanctions. And our government, I'm very happy to see, has said that the sanctions are not being put by us. How are we concerned with your placing sanctions? We are not on your side or their side. We are on our own side. And people are poverty-stricken. We are trying to remove the poverty of this country. And therefore, if we can get cheap oil from anywhere in the world, we will have it. And so we have it. Now, the trade for this oil is beginning to be done in the Russian ruble exchange rather than the dollar. Earlier, some years ago, when we were drawing very good oil from Iran, we were told by the United States that we have put sanctions on Iran and you are not permitted to draw oil from there. Foreign Ministry appealed to them to say that, India has to develop and oil is a basic expense. 85% of our foreign exchange goes in the purchase of oil. So if you can get some good, cheap oil from Iran rather than from Saudi Arabia, why should we not permit it to buy it? They said, no, we put sanctions and we shall not permit that trade because that trade was in dollars and the dollars are controlled by American banks. So therefore, we had to abide by that. Today, we are beginning that trade of oil with Iran as we please because we started rupee and whatever it is, dinar or whatever it is, their currency, direct trade. So you notice that the power of the American dollar is now going down. Even Saudi Arabia is trading with Russia, in the Russia and Saudi Arabian currency trade now. So we see where this world goes. It's going to become a more equal world. I have very great hopes for the future. We don't want to be dominated by one nation for the rest of our life. Now, visit to Kashmir, therefore, brought out a lot of lessons. Why do I say that Kashmir is such an important state? It is the most beautiful place in the world. Have you been there? I don't know if you've been there. If you haven't, you should. Because it is really the Shangri-La of which fiction has put some story there. Surrounded by great mountains, they're difficult to cross, and you come to this beautiful valley, which is about 180 to 150 kilometers long and about 80 kilometers wide. Beautiful river going there. The soil is gold. Anything that's produced there, the best of fruit in this country, the best of various types of nuts, like almonds, olives, you name it. Everything is there. Oranges, peaches, lemons, and saffron, or zafran, as they call it. Saffron. It's also one of the top producers. We visited Chashma Shahi, for instance, which is near Srinagar, which is in Srinagar, in fact, where the tulip gardens are better than the Holland tulip gardens. Why? Because the weather is like that. The soil is like that. And there's a lot of dedicated stuff there. People from all over the world come and see this. And when you see the saffron fields, of course, the saffron flower was not in bloom at this time. It was early April, then bloom later on in the summer. But I've seen them in the summer. You can see the blue saffron, the blue flowers of saffron as far as the eye can see. A sea of blue. And each flower, the tendrils, I don't know what you call them, which are the three little stalks in the center of the flower. Those are the ones that are taken to make saffron. It's very good for health, very good for babies, very good for pregnant mothers, very expensive. A little thing would cost you 1,000 rupees. A little container, about 1.5 inches long and a quarter inch deep, with saffron inside it, not less than 10,000 rupees. See, because of the effort it takes to get saffron out. Kashmir produces it. Then all, as I told you earlier, shrines of all religions are there. Buddhist shrines, Christian churches, Sufi shrines, Sunni shrines, and great people of all religions who have been writing poetry and writing philosophy, which people study. In the history of Kashmir, it earlier used to be a Vedantic nation with Lalita Aditya, if I'm not mistaken, who conquered the whole of northern India, very strong and powerful emperor. And later you had Buddhist empires there. Then when the Mughals came, they brought a Mughal empire there, and that brought in Islam. We have no objection to that because all these religions are very great religions. But what we have objection to is this fight of Pakistan sending terrorists over there to create mayhem and to destroy that economy. When the raiders came in 1947, their aim was not only to rape all those poor Muslim women, but to cut their trees down. A padam tree, almond tree takes 25 years to develop. You cut it from the roots and it's no longer going to grow for the next 25 years. So they not only entered Kashmir to, as I say, the rape of the valley, but also to destroy the economy of it. Why? Because if you destroy the economy and all the people are poverty stricken, then you can have terrorism inside there against the Indian government. This is an action of envy and jealousy rather than any capability of raising the public to higher levels of a beautiful life. Life is so beautiful. What's the objection? If people are doing well, why should you, in your envy, instead of copying them and trying to do yourself, try and destroy them? This is unfortunately the terrorist state of Pakistan. I have no love for them. Their people are wonderful. Their soldiers are excellent. Their army is as good as ours. I had many friends in that army. Now they're all getting old and they pass the sea. Many of them are from my school, from RMC. We are one-to-one, very good friends, very cultural people. Their wives are very full of culture. It's the government who are full of envy, the military rules and then the civilian rules. Between you and me, they have no leadership in their political leadership. No leadership. Because they're all self-interested to make money. Why aren't they not putting their effort to develop the nation and make its own economy and feed their population so that the terrorism is reduced? Their idiocies are being encouraged by the Americans and by the Western world because they lead a slave country which produces very good fighters and to produce terrorism to keep a balance according to them and not let India get too powerful or not get anyone too powerful. Anyway, we see where that goes. I don't think we will stop at doing whatever we have to do. Now, why should Islam and Christianity feel a danger? Think about it. Do we, as so-called Hindus, no religion, you know that. I told you earlier that when Alexander the Great came here, the people across the Hindu river, no, the Sindh River, or the Indus, we call it now. Who are the people on the other side who fought with them under Porus? They are the people living across the Hindu River. From Hindu comes Hindu. The Hindu Kush Mountains, the line of hills that now come down towards Afghanistan, and the Indus River. We draw our name as Hindus from there. We are not a religion. We are just the name of a people in a certain place. We really, if you look at the Hindu philosophy, it's a philosophy of how to live your life. It's not a religion. We don't have a religious book, for instance, like the Bible or the Quran. We have many books. We have the Vedanta, we have the Upanishads, we have the Puranas, we have the Gita, we have all this. We have the Ramayana, we have the Mahabharata. These are only books to explain the way of life, how to live your life as a beautiful human being and with love and affection for everybody else. So, why is everybody jealous of us? Are we afraid of our lifestyle? We are the only nation, I repeat, I've said this to you earlier, we are the only nation in the world which has been conquered for almost 1,000 years by Muslims, 750 years by Muslims. Then we've been conquered by the British for nearly 230 years. We have many people converted to Muslims and to Christianity, Still, Hindus are 85% of this population. We did not convert. We're the only. Anywhere else where these conquests took place, those nations have either become Islam or Christian. We have not. We have maintained our own dignity because we know the value of this great philosophy of ours. I think we don't propagate this, but it is propagated by Buddhism. And as the Prime Minister said in some of his talk, if there was going to be peace on earth, it is going to come through Buddhism, which is another way of life, but which is more explicit and which also propagates itself by sending their great thinkers and spiritual leaders all over the world to explain this thing, and many people convert to this great religion. India also produced four of the major religions of the world. Besides Vedanta, there is Buddhism, there is Sikhism, and there's Jainism, which is all come from India. In the West, the three great religions are Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, which came from the Palestine. They're the religions of the book, and they fight amongst themselves and kill each other most handsome. They are the violent races. Here, when we say that Vasudevaya Kutumbakum, we must agree it is the future policy for this world. And I'm sure that as we become stronger economically and militarily and can defend our own, we don't go into other people's country. As we become stronger, people will also listen to us. Many people say that we will be the Raj Guru of the world. Well, we don't know that. But if we do create a dent in the world, it will be with love and affection, not by the sword. There's an old philosophy of the Bible. He who lives by the sword shall die by this. There is also a philosophy which I told you a little earlier, amongst the 10 commandments, love thy enemy as thyself. Why don't those people follow their own religion? They don't. In the Ukraine war, you can see a lot of nastiness going on, a lot of hate going on. There is no reason to hate. Just because there's a quarrel between Ukraine and Russia, you don't have to hate Russia, or alternatively, the Russians don't have to hate the Americans. See, human beings are all children of the Lord, and I don't think anybody needs to hate anyone. Anyway, we see how that develops. I think I was very happy, as I told you earlier, to visit Kashmir. With their economy developing so fast, I have a feeling that a lot of good leadership is going to come out of Kashmir. Because their brains are very good. And all they need is education, and they need a satisfactory, peaceful life. And this will flower. The Jhelum River starts in Kashmir. There's huge development going on. Electricity products being produced. Pakistan keeps complaining that, we are using hydroelectric works on the Jhelum, and according to the Canal Waters Treaty, which was done between India and Pakistan in 1955 or thereabout, assisted by the World Bank, gave more advantage to Pakistan, which Nehru accepted, rather than to India. But one of the things there was that the three western rivers of the Punjab, that's the Indus, the Jhelum and Chenab, will go to Pakistan. And the Ravi, Byas, and Satluj will come to India. But all these rivers eventually flow to the Indus. So when there are flood waters, all the extra water goes to Pakistan. And Pakistan takes full advantage of that. We have built canals, etc., to get waters of the Ravi, Byas, and Satluj on our side, but our canal systems are not effective enough even till today. So large amount of waters, excess waters go to Pakistan. So it's not a very equal deal. There are many voices in India which say that the deal should be redone. Pakistan does not accept. And Pakistan has objected that, for instance, the Kishan Ganga River, which is north of Kashmir, of Jhelum, they call it the Neelam. That valley is with us, till eventually goes into occupied Kashmir and then joins the Jhelum at Muzaffarabad. We have taken pipelines from there to create penstocks, which produce electricity, and then those waters come into the Jhelum. But the Jhelum flows to Pakistan. So our point is that these are run-of-the-river projects, and the water is not taken away. It is there. But Pakistan is not happy with that. They keep saying that we should not take our water away because it must come to Pakistan. Water all over the world, Nivedita is becoming less. Everybody is concerned about water. We have to do preservation of water, and some of our crops and other systems have to change to allow less expenditure of water. Certain crops like rice, for instance, which is a staple diet in Kashmir also, require a lot of water. There are techniques of raising rice which is more dry. Israelis have a lot of techniques. They sent us a lot of ideas. And there's a lot of knowledge behind and technology behind the Israeli system of drip cultivation, which many of us have to try and convince our farmers to do. Where instead of flooding a field, you have pipes going through the field. It's expensive to put in, but only one drop of water goes to the roots of the plant that you're trying to develop, with the result to save water. So they have got very good production in the desert itself. We have to learn these technologies and try and preserve water. But when you are in Pakistan, it's not only a religious aspect of there after Kashmir. They are very concerned with all the headwaters coming from Indian territory. And also, when you in Pakistan look at the Kashmir Hill, they are towering above the Pakistani plains. Strategically and militarily, they're in a far more advantageous position in any conflict with Pakistan because we have the Kashmir Hills with us, which overlook the Pakistani plains. They're very concerned with that, and strategically, they feel they must get Kashmir, otherwise their defense of Pakistan is difficult. But we would like to, of course, convey to them that we are not interested in taking them on militarily because we are, in fact, many of us don't worry about what the politics says, but many of us are very satisfied that they are separated out. They are the so-called Gunda guys, let them have their own country and try and run it. It can't run by envy and revenge. It can only succeed by proper economic development. Our country, we are very lucky to have a good leader where development is the main theme instead of fighting with everybody. So much for Kashmir. And I think my visit there was a very good one after all these years. Very happy to see the smiling faces there, the satisfaction that people have because they're earning money. They can live a peaceful life, a very strong government. And I'm sure that once we have the elections here, in a few months' time maybe, we will have a full state government there, which is democratically run and a very good portion of India as equal as any other state, not a special state, 370 having been removed. None of us knew, never thought of it, that 370 could be removed. It's only an addendum to the Constitution and not a part of the Constitution. Put there in 1955 by Jawaharlal Nehru, who was more concerned with Kashmiri Muslims and saving them and appeasing China than anything else. Didn't have much of a strategic sense. He had other good quality, no doubt. But the 370 was a very bad black mark against India. And I'm very happy that it has been removed by a simple majority in the parliament. The Congress keeps complaining that we should have had, it's a constitutional affair, but it's not a constitutional affair. It's just an addendum. Constitution was finalized in 1949 and declared in Republic Day of 1950. This was added as an addendum with a simple majority in 1955 or 56. And as a simple majority, has removed the addendum. So 370 is gone and Kashmir is equal to all states in this country. Let's hope for a good future for them and for all of us. Now, we will go on to my American visit. I told you that we had made a program. There was another thing that was happening at the same time. The British Army chief, he was very keen to come to India. And he had sent a number of messages to me that why don't I invite him to come to India? Well, I did try to invite him. And his name was John Chappell, a very fine man. He had been a brigade commander